Hello and welcome back to the Crafter's Toolbox. This time we're going to be looking at an advanced watercoloring technique that I used for the latest Paint a Flower stamp set, the Iris stamp set from Altenew. And this was a really crazy stamp set. It is super detailed and it has all sorts of different lines and shapes going on all over the place. And it can be difficult to figure out like where the shadows and things are. But I thought I would add to that difficulty by doing a kind of watercolor technique that's called a transparent watercolor technique. Now, I don't think that I really employed that 100% here, but I did use a lot of principles from it. And I'm going to just show you how I started off with practicing the technique, and then I'll do a speed video of one of the flowers. So I am using the new watercolor paper set from Altenew. This is a 50% cotton paper if you get the 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch. Now the full size pad is 100% cotton, so it's just slightly different. But I really am interested in this paper because it is super smooth, even though it's a cold press. So it doesn't have really a lot of tooth to it at all. It kind of reminds me of a hot press watercolor paper, except that it is a blend. It's not all cotton. So I wanted to show you how I'm doing this technique with something a little more simple. So I pulled out one of these vases from the Versatile Vases stamp set, and I'm just going to pop this over here in the corner. And I just used the limestone ink to ink that on in place. And actually, I didn't do a really great job of stamping that, did I? Let's try that again. All right. So not that this really matters because it's just a sample for you, but you never know. I might actually use this vase at some point. I might die cut it out. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to do in this technique is go ahead and stamp your image. And you want to use a color that is going to eventually blend in or whatever. So using the limestone is a pretty good bet. And then you might need a palette if you're going to be doing any mixing. And of course, you're going to need some watercolors. So today I'm using the new 12 set from the, basically these are pulled out of the 32 pan set. And it's a nice core set for you to have if you're just looking for the core colors and you don't want to have the whole 32 pan, or you're not in the market for the artist watercolors. Okay, so now that I have my water all dirty, not a big deal really though. Okay, so you're basically going to start this off with a whole bunch of water on your project. And I'm using this to tell my watercolors where the boundaries are. And normally I would use hot press watercolor for this technique because it will absorb a lot of water. Well, the interesting thing about this paper is that because it is a blend, the water doesn't absorb into it super quick, and it does seem to take quite a lot of water. So it mimics kind of a hot press consistency, or so, you know, some of the properties that a hot press would. Okay, so I've got some of my color here. And now I'm going to just start dropping it in, paying attention to going right around these edges, as that's where I really want the color to concentrate. All right, so I'm not too concerned about the middle right now. It's going to kind of fill in on its own, and I want it to be transparent anyway, so I don't want a lot of color to go there. What I'm really trying to do is build up the color around the edges so that I have a really nice outline. All right, so I have that colored in. And like I said, I'm not really concerned about the middle because I really don't want it to be super purpley. I do want it to have that transparent look. So now that I have this in place, I'm going to take more cleaner water and start moving it towards the edges here. And you see how it's kind of suspended, and that's because I've set those boundaries when I went around the edge. All right, so now that I've moved a lot of this, There we go. I can start pulling the water out. Now, how am I going to pull the water out? There's a couple ways you can do it. If you're working with a large piece like this, you can take some paper toweling, and I just take it little pieces at a time and fold them up to give myself a nice little cushion. And I just start sucking up the water from the center. All right, so this works if you're going to do a larger piece like so. And then these edges, I'm just going to pick up with my brush. Be careful not to fling it around. And as I pull it up, you can see that I'm wiping it on my microfiber cloth here. And that gives me the line along the edge that I'm looking for, and helps me to get up all the rest of this water. It's pretty surprising how easy it is to pick up the water with your brush. All right, so that's the basic of the technique. Now, if I feel like I have too much water or too much color still in the center here, I can go ahead and take more of this cleaner water and again get it towards the center and continue pulling out the ink. It will continue to come out because of two things. One, these watercolors are pretty stain-free. So when you look at swatching your watercolors, one of the properties is staining. Will it leave a stain on the paper, and how much will it stain? So when I swatched these out, I saw that they weren't very staining, which means that I can use this technique to really pull up the color from the cardstock and hope to get almost back to white. All right, and then two, because this paper has some unique properties to it, mostly the fact that it is a blend, the ink is a little easier to move on here. All right, so I can even work to clean up some of these little edges and things like that. Now, if I want to have even darker edges, now I can come back again. But this time I'm just focusing on the edge here, little by little, and then I'll take a clean brush and pull off the extra ink that I don't want. All right, so now I have a darker line here, but I still have a nice clear center, and you can see how that's coming through. All right, so I can continue to work this. If I want to add in more shadows and things like that, I can do so. But then you start to really depart from what the concept of that transparent watercolor is, which is to really have a see-through look without a lot of shading and things like that. All right. So this is the basic concept. And like I said, I thought I would show you on something that's a little bigger, so that way when I move into the smaller piece, you kind of understand what it is that I'm doing. Okay, so let's take a look again at the finished project. So I'm going to speed color this one here, and I already have it stamped out on some limestone on this same new cardstock from Altenew. And I'm going to show you how I kind of made this one come to life. You can see that there is definitely some transparency going on here, but because of the complexity of the flower, I did definitely have to add in a lot of shading to make all of these different leaves pop and have dimension. Otherwise, it was really kind of difficult to make that happen. So you will see how I made this this flower come to life in the next segment, and I hope you enjoy watching that process.